Good afternoon, everybody. It's Thursday, it's 2 p.m, so it must be time for the Grad Cracker webinar. So today we're joined by Transport for London, or TfL. And I'm really looking forward to introducing you to the grads, Emily, Adam, who Adam actually joins us from the Caribbean, so he's on leave this week. So thank you, Adam, for tuning in and joining us today.
I was just thinking, it's not 2 p.m. for you, Adam, is it? What time is it there?
It's just hit 9 a.m.
Nice.
Me and Jess were a bit worried because when we got Adam on, he was like, "Morning, girls," and we were just like, no, Adam, it's afternoon. Whereabouts in the world are you today? So thanks, Adam, for joining us, and Philip as well also joins us on the call. So we're going to speak to all the grads about their experiences and what's in store for their future a little bit later on in the webinar. So for now, what I'd like to do is introduce you to Zahid, who is the Graduate and Apprenticeship Advisor at TfL. So Zahid, tell us a little bit more about your role.
Yeah, currently I have the fun task of getting involved with colleges and schools and talk to young people and giving the opportunity to get involved with STEM opportunities and apprenticeships and graduates opportunities at TfL. We create all the assessments and all the part prior to when you start with us, and once you start with us, you become somebody else's responsibility. Yeah. But yeah, that's basically what I do in our team. But obviously, everyone else has the next role.
Yeah, no problem. So when students are now looking at the webinars ahead and tuning in, are you somebody that they would meet during the whole application process?
Yeah. So are we going through the assessment process?
No, I'm just saying it. So would they get to meet you during that journey, and then we'll speak about that a little bit later on.
They get to meet me on occasions, depending on, obviously there is a process. Obviously, since the world of virtual, it has changed a lot more. There's less interaction with me, but more to do with the other parts of the business. But when it was physical, we had an opportunity. We would go in an office, we'd all meet each other and have a nice introductional chat. But obviously that's a bit different now. But obviously there is still an opportunity afterwards, and normally a follow-ups where we do have an opportunity to meet up with all the grads and all the apprentices.
Yeah, absolutely, no problem. So are you going to put your phone on silent, Zahid? You're going to get a ticking off.
I was trying to get onto silent. I was getting.
I was noticing you'd like this going, oh, can't multitask. For now, what I'll do is introduce you all, the audience, to Transport for London. So we all know that you're responsible for looking after the planning and everyday operation of the capital's transport system. But can you give me some more information about TfL? So, for example, how many people work there? Do you have offices all over London? Just tell the audience a little bit more about that. And Zahid, that's back to you.
Fair enough. Well, there's around, obviously never exact, but it's around 27,000 people who work for TfL. Yeah. We have offices all over London, and mainly there's three what we call will be main offices, but there's lots and lots of hub offices and depots, and again everyone knows about the stations and stuff like that. So with regards to the main offices, there's one in Stratford, one in Southwark, and one in, I've gone blank for a second. No, it's in North Greenwich. They are effectively our main offices for the moment. There was another one, but we have, and that was right under St James Park Station. On top of St James Park Station. That's changed. Obviously, we've sold that one now. So that was our original head office, and basically that's now that now belongs to another organisation. I think to hotels.
Things change quickly, don't they? So what we'll do is we'll get to know a little bit more about TfL later on, because we're going to do like a quick fire facts round towards the end of the webinar, so that'll be quite exciting. But for now, what I want to do is move on and meet the grads in a little bit more detail. So Emily, I'm going to start with you. Could you just give us a bit of information about your background, so where you went to university and what did you study?
Yeah, So hello, I'm Emily. I went to the University of Sheffield in 2015, and I studied a Masters of Engineering in Aerospace Engineering. And specifically, I was on the avionics stream, so with a focus on communication, electronics, computer control, and that side of things, rather than the aerodynamic design.
Perfect, thanks Emily. Philip, over to you. So where did you go to uni and what did you study?
So hi, I'm Philip. I went to the University of Kent and did a computer systems engineering degree. So that's sort of a mixture of electrical engineering, electronics and computer science modules. I worked for 2 engineering companies throughout my time at university in the summer breaks. So that's how I did my experience. Then I joined TfL in 2021, earlier this year, after receiving a place in 2020. So there was a bit of a break because of COVID in the hiring process, but everything was managed very well, and we were all kept in the loop and kept in contact with the other grads. Yeah,
I think that's important, isn't it? Because it is quite an apprehensive time between being offered a position and then obviously, you know, starting your position. And Emily, when did you start at TfL?
I started in 2019, so I think it's actually 2 years today. So my grad scheme is actually coming to an end now. Yeah.
Well, happy anniversary and congratulations for it coming to an end.
Thank you.
So from your point of view, Philip, you obviously had a virtual induction and a virtual start to TfL.
Yeah.
And how did you find all that? So you mentioned about speaking to graduates and keeping in touch. Was all that done by like Zoom and things like that?
Yeah, it was indeed, yes. So we had to keep warm sessions so that we could talk with both new colleagues in the graduate scheme as a structure where you have a buddy who's another one of the grads who's further along in the process. So kept in contact with them. So in total, it was maybe 5 or 6 months before I started after receiving the job offer because of COVID. So yeah, those sessions were really important. Learn more about the business. Sort of hit the ground running when we started as well, because we had lots of knowledge of the organisation. Yeah,
and I bet it's good that you've got that link in as well, isn't it? You can always refer back to somebody if you needed anything.
Absolutely, yeah.
Perfect, thanks Philip. And last but not least, Adam, so where did you go to university? What did you study? And add on a question, how long have you been at TfL?
I'll go work backwards. I joined TfL in January of this year.
Yeah.
And it was meant to be September, like the normal start dates, but it was pushed back because of COVID. So yeah, again, everything's been virtual for me. And I studied geography and geology at the University of Manchester. And being a joint honours degree, it was focused on the physical side of geography. So it was a science degree, part of the Earth Sciences School in Manchester.
Yeah. And I suppose that tied really well into the geology part of your degree as well.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you very much, Adam. So what we're going to do now is just talk about the relationship between TfL and Grad Cracker. So TfL have advertised on Grad Cracker for well over 5 years, which means that they are in the famous Grad Cracker 5-year club. TfL, I know Zahida is exciting. TfL also sponsors the Grad Cracker toolkit. So all of that information can be found on the TfL hub on Grad Cracker, as well as lots of other information, such as things like developing new, the application process and future projects. So it's well worth, after you watch this webinar, go back and have a look at the TfL hub and do some research and look at all of their opportunities. So here to talk about opportunities, when will you be opening this year and what sort of opportunities will you have on offer for our students?
Yeah, as you mentioned, we've got everything will be on the Grad Cracker hub. At the moment, the grads is looking to open towards the end of October. May end up to be early November. But the actual roles that's for applications. So the actual roles would start in September 2022.
Yeah.
We have a whole range of schemes that we're opening. I think there's 13 in total.
Okay. Yeah.
Of which 8 of them are specifically STEM based.
Yeah.
So I mean, I can list them right here. We got for the IT ones, we're going to have software development, technology analyst, and data science, which is quite a new one.
Yeah, exciting.
And then on the engineering ones, we're going to have ones we have in the past, like engineering and technology, mechanical engineering, civil engineering, fire engineering, and another new one, architecture.
Oh, okay.
Which we're obviously it's been quite an exciting one because a lot of people have asked about it, and we've never really had that part of the business asking for additional support. So it's and obviously we have our I say non-STEM ones, but they're still as important to us because they are a lot of our business. So we've got general management, commercial real estate, because we do own a lot of land at TfL. Finance, procurement, supply chain, and quantity surveying.
Yeah.
So and this year we're doing something a little different, mainly because obviously the pandemic created the opportunity where a lot of people can't get into the business. They haven't had any work experience, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're looking to do is introduce a few more summer internships.
Yeah.
And also year in industries. So we're doing that. So for our year in industries, we got one with commercial real estate, our communications one with this our so-called Stuart Ross scheme, civil engineering and engineering and technology.
Yeah.
And for summer, we're going to have a few placements for civil engineering and just engineering and technology. So Brilliant. These are obviously additions to the grad schemes that we already got in place.
Yeah.
And so we'll be shouting and screaming on the Grad Cracker the hub about them. Yeah. So obviously we're expecting a lot of applications for those.
Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like you've got some really, really interesting opportunities there. Just to talk about the architecture one then. So why is the demand there from the architecture business at TfL? Is that because you're winning new projects, or why is the demand in that section?
Well, we've always had a division which does architecture,
yeah.
but the projects, the project focus hasn't been as clear cut. Maybe that's the difference. It's just that they haven't required any additional staff. Maybe been applying from within, or moving around. But they've actually grown their division enough to say, listen, we need support, and we're going to support somebody for a couple of years, and then obviously they will get a role at TfL.
Fantastic. Well, exciting times to come, everybody. So just like Zahid said, remember, you will be alerted if you follow TfL on Grad Cracker with their new opportunities. So after this webinar, go to their hub, click the follow button, and then you'll be alerted to the new opportunities. For now, what I'm going to do, because I'm really excited to hear from all the grads, is speak to the grads, and then Zahid will come back to you a little bit later on to talk about the whole application process.
Brilliant. So Emily and Philip, as Carla mentioned, before you applied to TfL, you found the roles on Grad Cracker, which I know all of you did. But could you just kind of talk us a bit through why you use Grad Cracker, why you found it useful when you were looking for jobs, and maybe what was the bit that you found most interesting when you were using the site?
Yeah, I'll start.
I do apologise.
That's okay. Yeah, so for me, I mean, obviously final year of uni was super stressful. You've got so many plates to juggle. You've got your dissertation, exams, and then this whole ominous feeling of, oh my God, I need to find a job as well. So for me, just having that place to have, using Grad Cracker to have all of the jobs that you're interested in one place, it kind of like took away the stress of it a little bit, by being able to track things a little bit more easily, and helps to remember dates. And it was just one for me. I'm a bit of a scatterbrain. I'm sometimes not the most organized of individuals, so especially when there was so much going on in final year. So for me, it was just like that one less stress of where everything was in one place and I could just follow dates and not have to worry about it too much.
Yeah. So yeah, just to the audience that are listening now, so I've probably been speaking to your careers advisors, your tutors and lecturers over the summer, making sure I'm going to be reaching out to you all and doing lots of presentations on making sure that you understand Grad Cracker and using all the features to its, kind of full potential. So just like Emily said, make sure you're registered, make sure you're following like what Carla said, make sure you're saving the jobs to the dashboard and you're getting super organized, because it definitely helps, doesn't it, Emily?
Yeah, sure.
So Philip, come to you, same kind of question. What did you find useful when you were using Grad Cracker when you look at jobs?
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Emily said, but so I like the way that you can filter by sector, and I think the layout is better than lots of other job websites out there. The hub structure when you filter, so if everyone takes a look at the TfL hub page, it's a really good insight into the graduate scheme, and you can see sort of the application process and what development opportunities there are, and it lays it out in a very logical order, which I liked, and it talks about the business as a whole as well, so it gives you an insight into each of the companies that you look at. So on the TfL page, it talks about our current projects and what the future projects might be, because obviously the timescales of our projects are decades sometimes, so it's good to see what's on the horizon. So if people go on that hub, they can see the upcoming placements and the upcoming graduate jobs.
That's a good point, because I always say there's two types of research, isn't there? There's kind of researching and finding out about an employer and saying, is this employer right for me? And then there's the research after that, say, right, I've made that decision, I know TfL, for example, is right for me, what else do I need to know to put a good application together? So yeah, please do go through all the pages. I've said to Carla, well before this webinar, is so much content on there talking you through the full application process and lots of other information, so do go and have a good look. Next, Philip, I'm going to stick with you and Emily, and Adam, I will come to you. But Emily, come back to you. I know you studied aerospace, as you mentioned. So shout out to everyone at Sheffield. I love Sheffield, been there a lot on campus, lovely campus. So what made you move then to kind of transport sector? And obviously studying aerospace, what initially attracted you to TfL? Because it's not the obvious route.
Yeah, so for me, when I was beginning to look for graduate jobs, a lot of the aerospace ones were kind of based in, military or defense, and then obviously like the Rolls-Royce and the aircraft manufacturers. And to be honest with you, none of it really jumped out at me. I wanted, kind of ethics and sustainability is quite important to me, and I knew that I wanted a job that was going to make me feel good about going to work, and I think as I did some research, the kind of avionics side of my degree lends itself quite well to rail. So I was like, okay, I think this is going to work, and actually it feels really positive. I feel like I'm contributing something really positive, helping people. Public transport is something that we all can relate to, especially in London. I'm from London as well, so I've grown up using the tube. So that's kind of what attracted me to TfL and the transport industry in general. And now I'm here, I feel like I'm definitely, going to stay in the industry, especially as, sustainability is becoming such an important part of our lives. So yeah, that was the reason, really.
And I think that, you're a great example of transferable skills and, being able to transfer that knowledge that you've gained through your degree to put into something else. And again, I hope the students listening are aware that, they can do that. And, when you are going through the search on Grad Cracker, you're going to see a breadth of opportunities, but stop at each one and think, is this for me? So really good point there, Emily, and thank you for that. Philip, come back to you. So you are currently on the Engineering and Technology graduate scheme. So can you tell us a bit about the graduate scheme and what you've experienced so far?
Yeah, so I'm a graduate trainee on the electrical stream of the Engineering and Technology graduate scheme, which is a bit of a tongue twister. So Zahid said already that there are many different sort of streams within each of the schemes. So within the engineering and technology, we've got electrical, systems, and technology. So those are the three streams. So I'll talk briefly about the structure of the graduate scheme, because I think that's important. So it's got a really great structure. So it's 8 placements over 2 years. So every quarter, so every 3 months, we go on to a new placement. And the scheme's very self-driven. So you can sort of, to a large extent, target what you want to do. So it's good for going in the right direction for your career aspirations and crafting the scheme to your sort of wants. I think that it's important to say that placements are sought out by the graduate rather than being on a big list or anything. You have to use networking within the organisation to find your placements. But you're not alone in that. You can, there's a support network in place. So you have a sponsor who's your line manager, who's normally a more senior colleague. You have a mentor who's someone who's chartered, a chartered engineer. So they help you towards chartership and make sure that when you're picking your placement, you have the right competencies and you're picking up all your competencies as you go along. And the third part of the support structure is a buddy. So my buddy's in Emily's cohort in the year above. So it's someone who's just that step ahead of you, can give you that sort of peer advice rather than someone more senior in the company that you might not want to go to for certain questions. Like, don't want to feel stupid. You want to ask that stupid question to someone. That's the person you ask it to. So yeah, and there's also a large network of previous graduates, which is great. So some of the line managers I've had have been previous grads, but going back like 30 and 40 years. So yeah, so it's a really good network, and that's a great way of finding placements, is to talk to some of the other people who've been graduates in the past. So hopefully in a bit I'll talk about my placements. Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, do, because I was going to ask about the placement and how you find them, and what the process is. But so yeah, if we can come back to that, that'd be brilliant. Adam, I'm going to come back to you in the Caribbean. Like dancers and pina coladas in the background. So you're currently on the General Management Graduate Programme.
I am, yeah.
Can you tell us a bit what life is like on that programme? And is it similar to Philip in the sense of finding your placements and things, or is it a bit different?
So as the name suggests, it is quite a generalist placement, which really suits me. I came into the business not really knowing what direction I wanted my career to go in, if I wanted to do something completely related to my degree or branch off a little bit. And arguably transport and geography are well related. So it seemed like a no-brainer for me. The placement itself allows me to get an opportunity to experience what we call operational placements, which is stuff to do with the underground network and customer-facing kind of roles, but also the office side of things as well. For example, working with teams you might have never have heard of, Tfl Consulting or Investment Delivery Planning, which is my current team. So yeah, you really do get a breadth of experience, which is why it appealed to me. Kind of allows you to find your feet. Like Philip said, you go and do placements where you want and source them out yourself. So it's kind of, weirdly, it felt like I'm almost interviewing that person to find out, is it going to suit me? Am I going to take away from that experience what I want? If not, no, I'm going to find someone else. And it really is like that, because as a grad, you're kind of like a free resource to a team. They welcome you with opening arms. So, I want you to be selling yourself to me and making it sound like the placement's going to be great and teach me, and help me figure out what career path I want to take. So yeah, that's why I chose the general management scheme. And I think it is really good for someone who doesn't know exactly what they want to do, whether it be related to their degree or not, because you can still go and do placements related to your degree. To a certain extent, I say that with a pinch of salt, because obviously if you're doing engineering, I couldn't go and do a placement. Maybe I could, but I probably couldn't do a placement with a specifically engineering kind of based role without having that background or knowledge in place. But there is still a lot that you can get involved in.
So in terms of then, the experiences that you've had so far, have you kind of been surprised in some of the placements or experience that you've had? You think, I'm actually quite interested in that, and you didn't think you would be? Have you been exposed
to definitely
so far you didn't think you would be interested in?
Yeah, nothing. Sorry, yeah, I agree with you. It's things that I didn't think I'd be interested in, especially with the consulting side of things. Whenever I thought of consultancy or business consultancy, it made me think of, like business related things. You need to know about how businesses work and develop. But I don't know if it's because I studied geography, because it's quite a broad degree anyway. You learn a lot of different things and lots of skills that can be applied in many different fields. And you're never in kind of too deep, I find, with the grad scheme. They're really good at appreciating that, look, this might be your first ever job. You're fresh out of uni, and easing you in and teaching you what you need to know. So I always felt comfortable, never out of my, comfort zone.
That's a good point, actually, that, because I think sometimes as well, when you as a student, when you're applying to those roles and you're looking at your CV and thinking, I haven't got a massive amount of experience, you need that, the chance, you need the opportunity to gain the experience. So it's nice to have people around you knowing you that, and knowing that, it's okay not to know, and we're going to show you, how to do it. Which is good. Brilliant. That sounds good to me, Adam. Next, I'm going to ask you all. So, Emily, I'm going to come back to you first. Could you tell me a bit about any projects that you've been on so far? Obviously, I know you've finished your grad program now. So maybe what was your favourite program or project that you've been on, or placement you've been on whilst doing the graduate scheme?
Yeah, so like you said, I've done all of my placements now, so I can look back and reflect. I think there are a couple that stand out to me. I think Crossrail, I worked, I was taken off of, during COVID, I was on furlough for only 3 weeks, and then all of the engineering grads got put back to work, so we could help out with Crossrail. That was one of my favourite placements because it was a very demanding role. I think they kind of threw us into the deep end, but in a good way. Sorry, there's some feedback, but okay.
All right. I think it was just an echo.
Yeah. Okay. So I was working on the integration between the train and the signalling system, and looking at testing and we were doing some analysis to find out some gaps in the testing. We had some quite strict deadlines, loads to do, and I feel like on Crossrail we were treated as qualified experienced engineers, because the work demand was there. Another placement that I really enjoyed was my time in bus engineering, which was a kind of engineering strategy placement. So we were looking at bus electrification. So obviously air quality in London isn't great at the moment, and buses contribute to that. So we are looking at electrifying our entire fleet, which is a very tricky task because buses are very big. They require massive batteries, and it just creates a whole horde of problems in such a condensed city. More people use buses than use the underground. So that was a really interesting placement. That was before COVID, so I had opportunity to meet with bus contractors, go on sites. We were looking at where we're going to install charging infrastructure. And that was one where I wasn't sure if I was going to enjoy it, because I kind of went in thinking I want to do rail, but the buses, was really interesting. And the whole strategy side and a lot of problem solving. And then finally, probably my favorite placement is the one that I've decided to take a permanent job at, is bank station capacity upgrade. So I'm working on systems integration, bank station upgrade. We're doing new tunneling works, installing a new platform, a whole new station front of house, new escalators, new travelators, the lot. And I'm working on integrating all of the subcontractors with the main contractor, and again looking at testing, so using what I learned on Crossrail, but now I'm leading and doing my own work at bank. So that's really great. And the thing I like about bank as well is the fact that because it's in the delivery stage, there's opportunity for me to go on site, put my hard hat on, get my orange on, and look around the platforms and see what's changing and physically see it, which has been really great, especially after 18 months of work from home. So
I was going to ask you that, Emily, if you could get on site and get down and dirty and experience that, but now you are, which is fantastic. How does it work budget wise? And do you get a budget for developing a certain station? How does that work?
From the business side?
Yeah.
to be totally honest with you, I'm not actually 100% sure how. That's a little bit above my pay grade, I think, with the funding. I know that we fund, we all generate our own profit, so everything is funded from ticket sales. And I think someone mentioned previously how we've got a lot of property that we're involved with. I think occasionally you would have private investors, like for example the Northern Line extension, but I'm not entirely sure how it all works, but a lot of it we self-fund from ticket sales. So it was a bit of a hit when with COVID, obviously, but luckily these projects are still progressing. So
Brilliant. Thanks, Emily.
And then Philip, I'll come to you next. Same question. Favorite either project, placement, experience so far?
So unlike Emily, I'm right at the beginning of my 6 months in, so I'll probably talk about the 2 placements that I've done so far. So the first one I did was the Barking Riverside Extension project. So in terms of funding, that's like public-private partnership type of funding. So there's a big housing developer that want to build 10,000 houses in Barking Riverside area. And in order to facilitate that, they need, by government regulation, to provide enough public transport to get to that area and to facilitate that number of people. So they're part funding a new station. So anyone that knows London transport quite well will know that the Gospel Oak to Barking line is an overground line that runs across London. That's being extended out to a new site called Barking Riverside. So it's a really great first project. So it's a project engineering role. So I got to see like daily progress on a project in the delivery phase, which is really, really interesting. And everything's going on. So it's a really good first project to have because there's so much work with the contractors. It's good to see all those relationships and how all of that works. So I did tasks ranging from lots of compliance work. Everything was being signed off at that time. Communications with contractors, and then given some responsibility specifying signage and electrical assets that needed to be upgraded along the line. Facilitate it. I think, like what Emily said before about ethics and the social side, I think this project has quite a clear social benefit because it's revitalising an area of London that was quite deprived, bringing in lots of affordable housing and facilitating that with a new station. And I think that's a really positive aspect of working for a public sector organisation. It does such good work, and I think you can be proud of the work we do. And then the placement I'm on now is in a completely different area. So it's in the low voltage power team. So it's quite a complex engineering asset area. Lots of learning to be done on my side. So it's slightly more electrical than my degree was. So that means that, there's lots of learning, but my line manager is a previous grad. So she really understands that and is willing to put in that time for development. So I'm doing different work there, sort of analysing survey results, getting out on site and doing surveys myself. So I would say I'm sort of a support role in that team that you are as a graduate in most placements. But taking on more responsibilities as you go on through the scheme, I think. Trying to experience things in the earlier life cycle. So you've got like detailed design and feasibility much earlier on in the life cycle, which is more technical work rather than the delivery phase.
Have you found yourself, Philip, throughout your placement, now you're on your next one, getting more confident?
Yeah, definitely. And all the development that goes on and the support you get from your mentor and your buddy sort of supports that. All of the line managers that manage graduates are all really willing to help and willing to give you that time to develop, which is really important.
Philip, you're going to talk earlier, and I think I stopped you, but about getting the placements and that process and finding your own placements. So just if you could just tell us a bit about what that experience is like.
So it's all down to networking. So I start off talking to my mentor. So my mentor is a chartered engineer, been with TfL for 30 years. So he has lots and lots of contacts within the business. So it's a really good point to start when you're thinking about the areas. So I said before there were 8 placements that you have to do. 4 of them are in compulsory areas.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do one in building services, one in power, one in road or rail signalling, and one in vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
So you can do those in any area within that, though. There's no restriction. So I'm doing my power one now. Building services was the building of the new station in Barking. And then the other 4 are your free choice. So you can go and explore different business areas. So I'm in an engineering role. I could go and do sort of a more strategy role. I could do one of the roles that Adam is doing. And likewise, like Adam said, he could probably come over and do something similar to what I'm doing in a more project engineering role, maybe, rather than having those that technical knowledge. But so there's quite a lot of flexibility in exploring different areas of the business.
That's good. And then in terms of, do you think you've got an idea yet? I know it's still a bit early, but have you got an idea where you can imagine yourself going in the next couple of placements, or are you still going to go open-minded for each one?
Open-minded for each one, sort of narrowing down as I go, I think. I'll do a signalling one next, probably. Not because it's a compulsory one, just because I think it's good to get that core railway knowledge to start off with, because it applies to so many of the placements. I don't know where I'm going to go yet, but that's the beauty of the scheme, really, is that you can try out loads and loads of different things.
Yeah. And a quick question there, do you have to relocate for each placement, or can you stay where you are?
So most of TfL engineering is based in our site at Stratford, our office at Stratford.
Right.
So when we're in the office, it's going to be moving around that floor.
Right.
And there are sub-sites as well. So I assume Emily will be working at the office at Bank. And then Adam will be working at the site in Southwark. So yeah, if you're in engineering and moving around engineering placements, there shouldn't be too much moving of offices. But if you're going to a site where a place is being built, then you be moving around London.
Interesting. Brilliant. Well, thank you, Philip. Moving on to you, Adam. If you could tell us, same question, favourite projects, placement, experience, whatever so far.
Well, as I mentioned, I am only in my first year, but I feel like I have a plethora of experiences to talk about. My first placement was with TfL Consulting, and I did really enjoy that because before coming to TfL, I thought kind of environmental consultancy would be what I wanted to do. So I knew a lot about how that kind of business in the private sector runs. And then when I joined the team, I was exposed to a lot of people who had a lot of experience in that private sector. They all had pretty similar backgrounds, geography and geology and environmental sciences kind of stuff. So it was really good to meet with them and kind of dip my foot into an area of the business that's quite different from the rest of TfL. I think I only really appreciate that now. I've done a couple more other placements, but when I was first there, although they said it, I didn't know because I had no experience of other placements within TfL. I had no experience of how different areas of the business run and operate. But yeah, consulting was such a unique opportunity because they kind of draw on the expertise of TfL to help other countries or other companies within our country to develop their own maybe transport systems, or if somebody's interested in introducing ULEZ, let's say, they would come to TfL because we are just world leaders in a lot of this stuff, you know, dealing with large numbers of people or having proven successes in different areas of transport. It kind of is a no-brainer that people come to TfL, but even still, the process of how TfL go to acquiring these contracts and go to getting these different, let's say, contacts and different places they can work in is just really unique and different to how TfL works. So there's like a bidding stage where that's the kind of work I was helping out with, because there was no real projects operating at that time. It was all trying to get future projects. But even the bidding process, I don't know if anyone listening is familiar with it, but it's a project in and amongst itself. You still need to do your research and speak to the people within TfL who have that knowledge and say how we can offer our help and expertise on this particular project. That was just really a unique opportunity. And like I said, now I appreciate more how unique it really was compared to the rest of the business.
Yeah.
That's something that I love about these webinars, you know, Jess, when every week, you know, we're holding a different webinar with a different employer in a different sector. And, you know, you'd think of TfL, and you'd think of like Crossrail, the underground, you know, the buses and everything else, but it's the like the hidden roles almost that I just find absolutely fascinating about, you know, from me looking at TfL, you know, you might not know about like the bidding structure and everything that you've got to do behind the scenes. So this is why I really enjoy doing these webinars as well, because it does give the students watching a proper insight to the company. And so yeah, that insight that you've just given, Adam, I think a lot of people watching in from the outside won't know about all of that, and it's really good to tell everybody about probably like the hidden opportunities that they can go into.
Yeah.
And I think about learning about business as well is so important, because I'm getting excited then I'm choking. Learning about business will then, yeah, has massive impacts, doesn't it, about, you know, the decisions that you might make as a future leader and all sorts. So yeah, really good insight.
I think as well, to add to that point, you know, you say about stuff that you learn, you know, I know I've learned listening, going to the webinars and presenting on them. But it's things like, you know, what you think you know about a business, until you hear you guys speak about a business, you think, oh, actually, you know, you think of the stereotypes, you think of the, you know, the stuff that comes to mind straight away. And, you know, it's just little things you all mention. And like you say, Carla, it's, you know, the stuff that, you know, you think of big organizations, and sometimes you have that mindset, oh, you can imagine what it's like working for them. Are you just going to be a number? Is it just going to be like this? And it's like, actually, no, it's completely different to that. You know, we talk about this, don't we? I think, well, Hannah does. She's got a little
article
post, hasn't she, within the Career Centre, and she's talking about small companies and large companies. And I've learned so much attending these sessions and going in with that stereotype, oh, I already think I know what that company's about, and you actually don't, do you? You think completely different to what you think you know.
So yeah, so leading on from that, just, you know, Jess's thoughts of the day. It's hard to keep track of you, Jess. Leading on from that, I kind of want to speak to the grads about your learning and development. Obviously, Philip, you've mentioned quite a few times now about having a mentor, a buddy, and everything else. And I did want to touch on Chartership with you, because it is something that you've mentioned a couple of times during the webinar. So is Chartership something that you are working towards achieving? Is that something that is one of your proudest achievements so far? And how are you getting help with that? Because if it is something that you're going through, I know a lot of our audience will want to be in that position in the future.
So in engineering, it's more of a long-term career goal.
Yeah.
So, although we're sort of ticking off competencies and gathering evidence towards that, yeah, it's a longer term thing within your career. So I'd probably aim to do it after 3-4 years after rolling off the grad scheme, perhaps, because you have to get that sort of management experience for one of the competencies, and lots of discipline knowledge for some other competencies. Yeah, some people are very ambitious and can do it quite soon after getting off the grad scheme, but it sort of depends on the pathway you take, because we roll off and become different engineers, sort of project engineers and discipline engineers. So it sort of depends on the route that you take.
From your experience, Philip, I'm sorry to put you on the spot if I am about this question, but do you think sometimes students might rush into, or graduates might rush into Chartership? Do you think it's a good idea, you know, to go through the graduate programme, experience the different areas, and then obviously work towards Chartership, but not to put too much pressure on yourself? Would that be something that you would suggest?
I don't know whether you can rush into it as such, because you need to tick off a lot of competencies. So, and it's something to keep in mind, though, not at university necessarily, but as you start your career, to think about filling in some of those competencies and sort of logging what you do as you go along. So if you've done a particular experience and you've had a particular opportunity, then just to note that down, so that when you get to the process, so what we're often advised by our advisors is to just keep that, because it's quite a arduous application where you have to write quite a lot about the last however many years, 5 years sometimes, of your experience. So just to keep that record.
And I suppose when you're involved in so many different projects as well, it's hard to keep track, isn't it, about what you learned where and what skills you utilise where. So Adam, I'm going to go on to you now. What learning and development from your personal point of view, you know, what's the best thing that you've learned, and what did you enjoy the most so far?
So there's loads and loads of ongoing learning and development you can do kind of in your own time with TfL. I think by the time I complete my grad scheme, it is compulsory for me to have completed set tests and exam courses, let's say. So we have this portal called eZone, and through that there are just countless amounts of tests. And I keep saying tests, it's not tests, it's learning programs just for your own personal development, essentially. They have information and then little quizzes at the end. I don't know if you've ever experienced that kind of thing before, but some of them are compulsory because you just need them, and I think different schemes have different compulsory parts to that. But I think the best thing I actually did was so it was with the Association for Project Management, and it was, I don't know if it actually counts as a chartership or not, but they call themselves the Chartered Body for Project Management, so it could be related to that. But it was a project fundamentals course I had to do, and that too was part of my scheme. It's something that we have to complete. But that was really insightful because the project management stream we kind of studied with that exam and course is directly off what TfL's project management is based off of. So TfL used something called Pathway, and Pathway is based off of what I was learning. So it's applicable to everything I do in TfL, especially with my grad scheme. Project management and that kind of thing oversees a lot of the stuff I do. So it's great to get that knowledge early on and apply that to any placements going forward, really. So that was really valuable.
You sound like my geography teacher, Adam, because I used to struggle quite a lot with exams, and I just used to just fall to pieces at exams. And my geography teacher, Mr. Day, if you're watching me, Mr. Day, he said, Carla, it's not an exam or a test. Just think of it as a quiz. Like it's still a test though, Sarah, isn't it? He was like, well, yeah, Carla, but just think of it as a quiz instead. So just to try and steady my emotions.
I just didn't want to make it sound like, there's loads of exams and tests you have to do, but that's really not the case.
So you mentioned good because nobody likes exams, including me. So you mentioned I think you mentioned, Adam, about doing this in your own time. Is that true, or is it part of your course that you get allocated time to do these things?
No, it is part of your own time. I mean, you can have time for study leave. As we're talking about the grad scheme, I won't mention much about the apprentice scheme because that works completely different. But with the grad scheme, you do still get study leave as well. So, for example, on the day of my project management qualification exam, I used one of my days of study leave to allow me some, time to revise and go over some stuff beforehand. So you still do get study leave and time like that. But with regards to the eZone stuff, that is in your own time. But that doesn't mean out of work hours. If you've got some free time waiting for a meeting or God knows what, then you can use that time there to go on eZone and have a look through what you've got to look through, basically.
Yeah, and I think that's a skill as well, though, isn't it? When you learn and when you start a job, it's about time management and everything else, and fitting all these little bits and pieces in as part of the program there. Emily, I'm going to move on to you now. So your training and development, best piece of training that you've had so far, and how do you think it's developed you as a person?
So obviously I was lucky enough to start the grad scheme before the pandemic, which I think has made a little bit of a difference with my training. So when I started, I had a number of in-person training courses relating to, so for example, basic track awareness. So if you ever have to go on track as part of a project, depot training, so using the depot safely, and others that I can't remember, but lots of practical related, safely working around trains. Also, we did station training, so if I ever wanted to volunteer for a station shift, I could. But my favorite piece of training that I did in January 2020 was disability equality training, which was ran by a member of a disabled network who basically give advice to TfL about how to make the network more accessible. And she gave it was a full day, a fantastic morning of language around disability and different types of disability and how that affects you in the workplace, but also as a passenger or a user of our services. But the thing that really stuck with me about this piece of training was in the afternoon, you then taken by a volunteer, a disabled volunteer. In my case, it was a gentleman who was blind, and he takes you on a trip around the network, and he shows you how he navigates it, and kind of enables you to understand the different sort of accessibility needs, and also things that work well in the network and things that don't work so well. And that's really stuck with me. And so, you know, for the rest of my career, I'm going to always think back to that day of, you know, thinking about accessibility, because it's such an important part of what we do. So that's my favorite piece of training, but I've done a lot.
I get the impression, Emily, like you do like to put that high vis on and get down onto the site.
Oh yeah. Any excuse.
I thought that I used to be like that when I used to work in transport. I was like, yeah, high vis on, just go down to transport. I absolutely love that. So did you find when you went out with the blind gentleman, Emily, did you find things that you reported back to the office straight away and thought, right, we need to get these things changed?
Not so much we need to get these things changed, because it was a training course. I guess he was just making us aware of it. But certain things, when you're kind of having discussions about design and realizing like something that might seem irrelevant to me. So for example, the color of the poles on a train, on the Jubilee line, they're grey, and for somebody who is visually impaired, that's not so useful as, say, the yellow ones that are on the district line, because they can, you know, it makes it easier to see if you are. So it's kind of more something that is in the back of my mind when making these decisions, thinking about things and having conversations with people. Kind of, you know, it makes you remember to keep that. It's really important. So yeah,
of course it is. No, thank you very much for that, Emily. I think I'm going to move on to the application process now, just because I want to get that in. So Zahid, you need to take yourself off mute, my love. So the application process, I knew you'd have forgotten that. He was like, oh yeah. So I'm like your mother. So the application process is going to be, obviously you mentioned opening up at the end of October, early November. So our students watching will receive an email and push notification to let you know that they've gone live. What is the application process then? So a student applies, take us through that. So deadlines, timelines.
Yeah, sorry. Basically, it's a 4-stage process.
Yeah.
And so you would start with your basic application form. It is very basic. We really just want to know if you are eligible. You're going to have the right qualifications, and that's our main concern on that first application form. You complete that, and then you will almost automatically send a link for your online tests. Your first one, which is a situational strength test. You know, they give you a few situations. They ask you how you would react in this situation. Rank your answers 1, 2, 3, 4. And obviously, we're just trying to get an understanding of the type of people that are going for the roles, and obviously get an understanding how they fit into the kind of characters we want for TfL. The truth is, we always say to everyone, you know, just be honest. You can't really guess what we're looking for. Just be honest, be yourself, and basically, you know, I'm sure it'll work out for you that way around. But that's the only way to do those. After that test, you've got another test for the grads. It's the ability test, which is like inductive, deductive reasoning. So that's again, you got a week to complete that one. So you obviously you've now gone into, but obviously as soon as you've sent one in, you're going to get the next one. And following that test, you're going to have a video interview. Now, the video interview is basically about your motivation. We want to know why do you want to work for TfL, and also why did you pick the scheme that you did? Because remember, you're only going to apply for the one scheme. So why are you passionate about it? What makes it about you? And obviously, we understand a lot of people come from universities, don't have experience, you know, of any work in the past. We understand that that's not a problem, but why are you passionate about engineering? What is it? What is it? What put you in that frame of mind? And so that's basically the video interviews. Basically, just asks you about your motivation. Following that, then we have our final stage, which is the assessment day. I said it's still virtual. It may become a bit of a hybrid, and that's in discussion at the moment. But during the assessment day, you're going to have things like maybe some sort of group exercise, a competency-based interview, or a scenario-based interview. And then you're going to have, you may have to do some sort of presentation, which you'll get you'll get some warning about a week in advance. We'll give you an idea of what the presentation will be about, and you're going to have to do that. And obviously you're marked on the day with other people on the day, and you might be doing it just one-on-one, or you might have a little group group discussion about it. But obviously it all boils down to different schemes have different requirements. You get through that and it will be, welcome to TfL. Simple.
Simple as that. So is the application process similar for the placements as well, placements, internships?
Yeah, they'll be similar. Obviously the assessment day may be a little different.
Yeah.
We also may have to remove the ability tests. Might not exist for them because there's also less requirement for it, but generally they're quite similar in structure.
Perfect. And as thanks, Zahid, and as Jess mentioned at the beginning of the webinar as well, all of these details are on the TfL Hub. So if you are thinking, okay, so what's the structure again of the whole application process, go and check out the Hub. We'll also break the webinar down into bite-sized chunks as well. So everything that Zahid just mentioned will have its own little video about the whole process, and that'll be on the TfL Hub early next week. So keep an eye out for that. Now, I know you're all excited about the key fact about TfL. So I'm going to start. Philip, I think you are the most prepped on this. So give us one exciting key fact about TfL that the audience might not know about.
Okay, so mine had to be about the tube because it's so old. There's so many interesting facts about the tube.
Yeah.
So next time anyone's out on the network, go to Sloane Square tube station on the Pick line and have a look above the platforms, and you'll see a cast iron tube. And it's from the early 19th century, and a river's running through it. So the Westbourne River is running through that tube. So it used to feed the Serpentine Lake in Hyde Park in the Victorian times. And they stopped using that because it was so polluted, and they started using the Thames instead, which I think says something about how polluted it was.
I was just going to ask that.
The Thames was also really polluted at the time. So yeah, they built the station around the river in this tube because it was in the tube underground before the station was built because of all the development going on in the area. So
it was a lesser of two pollution evils, some may say.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Perfect.
I think it's really interesting the amount of history we come across when we're doing the work we do. Just the other day, I was working on the Blackwall Tunnel and dug out a thing from the archive from 1940.
Yeah.
To read off some measurements from that design, which is, remarkable, really.
Oh, I love that sort of stuff, like I was watching a documentary, I think it was a couple of years ago, about Crossrail and everything that they've found. I just think it's fascinating, like the history of places and, like paperwork that you just said, Philip. Yeah, I love stuff like that.
And I was going to add, sorry, Carla, there is also a company archives department in TfL, and they basically have loads and loads of stuff. They obviously archive loads of stuff from 150 years ago to today when TfL started, and so they've got things which are really are basically a treasure trove of interesting into stuff in there. But yeah, that's in a sense a department in itself, which obviously there's opportunities which people can get placements on, I'm sure.
I might have to come and visit you, Zahid. When we're doing these insight days again, me and Jess will just pop down. Jess will do the insight day. Me and you can be locked up in the archives and just having a bit of a nosy. I think that's the plan.
What would actually happen though? Say if you did find an ancient artifact, who keeps it, or do you have to give it to say?
You can't just keep it. You can't just put it in your back pocket, love. It's like
because we have our TfL museum, we have our company archives, but but yeah, they have between them a lot of things. But I'm guessing you'll have to give it in or sell it.
Yeah, you will. Can we just not encourage anybody on a Grad Cracker webinar just to put stuff in the back pockets if they find these famous artifacts? Although Jessica Look said, right,
oh no,
scrub around that. Key facts, Emily, do you want to go next, my love?
Okay. So yeah, we always talk about how old the tube is. It's the world's first metropolitan underground railway, and it was built. The first line is Metropolitan Line. It was built in 1863. That's my fact. So
I like that fact. Good fact. Which country had the next underground? Do you know that?
Yes, I did. I think it's, I want to say New York, but don't fact check me because that might be a lie.
Okay, we won't hold you to it. We'll say New York.
On the webinar said this.
Emily said.
I'm pretty sure.
Adam, before you go and get a pina colada, come on, entertain us.
We won't be dancing in the
Sorry,
rain.
I'm going to apologise quickly because a wedding has just started outside and the music sounds quite loud. But let me quickly just say that when you see underground platforms or tubes in movies, it's normally not on the normal network. So TfL have some disused stations and platforms that tend to get used for movies. I don't know if they sell the space or rent it out for a period of time, but yeah, it's not actually along a platform that you might think you've been on, fortunately.
Oh. Well, thanks for that, Adam. Ending on a high. I like that.
But you can visit the disused stations.
Oh, can you?
I think it's Hidden London. If you look up Hidden London, you can do tours of some of the disused stations, which is really cool.
Oh yeah.
They're still carried on virtually. So they've got virtual Hidden Londons at the moment. So yeah, so that exists if you go online.
Oh, fab. Yeah, check that out. Me and Jess might be doing that later on. So yeah, thank you everybody for joining us today. Thank you to the audience. Remember that the TfL webinar will be live on their hub tomorrow and also in the Career Centre, so take a look. Also remember to tell Zahid that you've watched the famous Grad Cracker webinars. When you do put your applications in, the recruiters are obviously always want to know that the fact that you've taken your time out to watch these webinars with me and Jess. What I do want to say as well is the Grad Cracker is very, very busy at the moment. So make sure you access the website every single day. There's new opportunities, new employers going live almost daily now. So now is the time, as Jess would say, get organised, get your applications in, start saving your jobs. Like Emily mentioned at the beginning of the webinar as well. And don't forget that TfL will be opening up their opportunities end of October, early November. So go and follow. Next week, me and Jess are going to be joined by Renishaw. So Renishaw is one of the world's leading engineering and scientific technology companies. Same time, same place, next Thursday at 2 p.m. So for now, thank you, Philip. Thank you, Zahid. Thank you, Emily from the United Kingdom, and Jessica and Adam from the Caribbean. Have a nice holiday. See you all soon.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah,
Take care.
bye.
Bye-bye.